Hey, hey, hey! Welcome to another episode of ImJustFine Podcast. I am your fabulous host, ChrisLynn, and today we're back in the kitchen. I know you see it. So that means, of course, it's still dry January. We're still making mocktails, and I did receive a lot of feedback. Like, when are we making cocktails? I like my liquor. Can you show me how to make that same drink with a little bit of liquor in it? Don't worry, I got you. But as long as it's dry January, I'm making mocktails, okay? So let's do a little bit of a recap. I like to start the show with a little bit of a recap. Last week, we talked about endometriosis. What a wild ride that was, right? I'm sure a lot of people were like, oh, I had no idea. Yeah, most people don't, which is why I created the video. I appreciate all of the feedback. I received nothing but positive feedback from you all, so I greatly appreciate it. Please share the video. Share it with your friends, share it with your family, get the word out there. It's all about awareness, right? Also, like this video. Every time you join, just go ahead and click that thumbs up. I see a lot of views, but it doesn't match the likes. So make sure you like my videos. Make sure that you subscribe to my channel if you really like the content. Then you'll see when I post new videos, you'll get an alert. And then also, follow me. I'm on all social media platforms now. Whew, took a little bit of a learning curve. I'm still learning TikTok, but I'll get there, right? So, this week was a little bit challenging for me. I have to say that I'm just fine. Like, for real, I'm just fine. What am I just fine about? I'm just fine about going back to the gym. I went back to the gym this week. It was not fun. It was no bueno. It was absolutely no bueno. Waking up at 5 a.m. in Atlanta, where the average temperature was about 20 degrees. Some days it was 12, some days it was 30, but the average was about 20 degrees. It was freezing. But I said, you know what? I'm making Monday my last day one, and I'm going back to the gym. So I made up with LA Fitness, started going back to the gym, and I'm going to continue to go to the gym even though it has not been easy. It'll get easier, but for now, we're in that, oh my gosh, I'm sore phase, everything hurts, I move, and I live in a townhouse. So climbing these stairs this week has been very challenging, extremely challenging. Also, what I'm just fine about, I took my before pictures. I didn't post them because I'm quite embarrassed to post them, but once I reach my after, I will definitely post them because you just really don't know how much weight you gain until you take a picture in front of a mirror. I took my before pictures this week. I needed to be accountable, right? I needed to hold myself accountable. I needed to see what I had done, and actually, hilariously, I sent them to my cousin and said, how did this happen, right? Like, when did I gain all this weight? It hasn't even been that long. And she laughed and said, it's very easy, right? Those are two things that I'm just fine about this week. I went back to the gym. And on top of that, the morning gym rats don't accept me anymore. So I'm not one of the cool kids. It was just, you know, the people who used to say good morning to me, the people who would talk to me, they kind of ignored me. And I was a little worried about this. I was like, dang, I kind of don't want to go back to the gym because I know people are going to see me and they know what I looked like before. And then they're going to see me now. And I don't even know why that was a problem for me. It's really all in my head, but I felt judged. I felt real judged this week. Like, here she comes back. She done put on all the weight. Now she has to come back and get it off. Maybe she should have stayed. Even though they don't know why I didn't leave the gym, I still felt so self-conscious, which is, you know, it's reality. It's true. I'm being honest. I felt judged this week. The people who, you know, used to give me a high five in the morning, I was like, it's good to see you. They didn't talk to me this week. Maybe it'll take a couple more weeks because I'm like the only person who brings a slam ball. So I have the weighted ball and they don't have them at my LA Fitness. So I bring my own weighted ball. So they know it's me. There ain't nobody else who is annoying enough to bring a weighted ball to the gym. I bring my own equipment. I don't got time for, oh, you can't use this because you're not being trained. And I know for a fact they know it's me. But I felt judged this week. That's all I'm going to say. I did. I felt a little judged. So anyway, let's get into what we're doing today. We are making a mocktail. It is still dry January. How many of you have been holding out? I know it's hard. It's really, really hard, especially if you drink on a regular basis. It's kind of hard, but I'm trying to introduce you to delicious mocktails so that you maybe can substitute and drink less. It is okay not to drink every single time you go out and socialize. It is okay to cut back on drinking alcohol. I know I was kind of forced to because of my health, but I feel better. So, hey, why not? So this week, we are making a FibroFizz. Why? Because next week I'm talking about fibroids. Duh! I will be introducing you to fibroids. My fibroid journey starts next week. Just so you know, as a reminder, I had 17 removed in July. Yes, 17 fibroids. I still can't wrap my head around it. How did I have 17 fibroids growing in my body? I've never met one person who's like, oh yeah, I have more than 10. I met someone that had 10 and they had them removed. But 17, I'm still like, ain't no way. Ain't no way. But that's my cousin. Yeah, I mean, she told me when I woke up immediately, you had 17, cousin, like holy shit, right? We're making a FibroFizz. Because it's January, because it's cold, and because a lot of people have been getting sick, I created this mocktail to include my BFF ginger. I love me a good ginger drink. And I'm also going to be using lemon juice, fresh lemon juice. I love to use fresh ingredients. I told you guys that the first time I made a mocktail. I juice my own lemons, and I will be using fresh ginger in this mocktail. So what else you need? The ingredients you need are 2 strawberries, medium size is good, a tablespoon of cut ginger, a tablespoon of basil, 1.5 ounces of simple syrup, 1 ounce of lemon juice. You'll need club soda. We are not topping off with champagne. And then my garnish, my beautiful garnish, is going to be candied ginger. So let's get started. You know, we got our shaker. You'll need your shaker, you'll need a muddler, and you will need a Hawthorne strainer. You don't have to use these things. Have a whole bar at home. Just improvise. You can use a glass, you can use the top of a cup, hold it to the side, let it drain, just so that you can get the juice out right into the cup. The glassware we're using today is a coupe glass. It's going to be something similar. We're making something similar to a French 75. We're topping it off with some soda instead of champagne. First, we need to chill our coupe. I have some ice water here. We're just going to put it in there. And as we're making our drink, that's going to chill my coupe down, and we'll get started. So into my shaker is going to go my strawberries. Then I'm going to add my ginger. Then I'm going to add my basil. I'm going to add in my simple syrup. And then I'm going to muddle. And this muddling, we actually have to get in there pretty hard. So I know last time I said don't kill your vegetables. This time you really gotta twist and turn so that we can get all the juice out of that ginger. So you're gonna have to use a little bit of elbow grease because we gotta get into that ginger. So press and turn is the way to go. We're gonna muddle that down. Press and turn, let's get that ginger nice and muddled. Now this could be nice. You could use some fresh ginger juice, but just think about your proportions when you pour it out. If you do juice, you're gonna have more liquid. So just think about that, but we're gonna get a nice, good muddle on this. And because we're straining it, we wanna get as much of those juices out of there and as much of those flavors out of there as well. So we're gonna keep muddling that. All right, see how mushed that is? And now we're going to add the lemon juice. And I'm gonna grab some ice. Add ice. And we're gonna dump out our water. We just now have a chilled glass. Well, it's tight on there. And we're gonna strain into our coupe glass. And we're gonna top this off with soda water. And it's just gonna become our fizz. How pretty is that? Perfect. We're gonna add our garnish. And that is the FibroFizz. Okay. We have our FibroFizz. It is absolutely delicious. You get the different hints of the basil, the strawberry, the ginger. Oh, and it has that little bit of fizz to it. It's perfect. This would be a cocktail that I would definitely enjoy with gin. I'm not even gonna lie. But it's absolutely delicious without gin. And the uncrystallized ginger that I'm using as my garnish is perfect for it. So, you know I love me a garnish. Okay, so let's get in. What are we talking about today? What are we talking about today? It would just be most appropriate to continue talking about endometriosis, right? The reason why is because, you know, we're going from endo into fibroids, and then we're going to talk about the surgery. So I don't want to just be random and talk about something in between. I want to keep your focus and your attention. So I wanted to talk about an experience I had with endometriosis. And the reason why I want to talk about this experience is because, again, a lot of people have been saying that women with endometriosis, we're making it up. The pain, it's in our head. We really don't have the pain we're saying we have. Because, you know, this magical, you know, I call it the magical matter. This magical matter is just destroying our organs, but, you know, doesn't hurt at all, right? So I want to talk about a time, this is about 2 years ago. I was on a work trip. I was in Baltimore. It's very important to know where I was because it's going to let you put into perspective the type of pain I was in. I was in Baltimore, Maryland. And if you've never been to Baltimore, it's not a city that most people go, ooh, I want to visit Baltimore. It's just not. And when I go to Baltimore, I stay in the harbor. That's the only place that they could even beg me to stay. I mean, they would have to beg me to go to Baltimore, but in the harbor. And no offense to the people from Baltimore, no offense, but you know your city. Don't try and play fake the funk. You know your city. So I had a visit. I used to be a CRA, a clinical research associate, and I had a visit at the Johns Hopkins University. So I did my normal thing in the morning. I go on the corner from where I needed to be. There's a Dunkin' Donuts. So I parked my car, went to Dunkin' Donuts, and at the time I wasn't eating meat, so I got the Beyond Meat, fake meat stuff sandwich, and I got a coffee. And I then walked to my site. This was like 9 a.m.-ish. I get to my site, I drink my coffee, I eat my Beyond Meat, Impossible fake meat sandwich. And about 10:30-ish, I have to use the bathroom. And yes, I mean number 2. I had to go number 2. Numero dos. Because the coffee, right? Coffee makes you go to the bathroom. And I don't drink coffee often. So this is very important to note. I don't drink coffee often because I know I talked about my constipation. They're like, well, why don't you just drink coffee then? It's not healthy for you. It's an inflammatory beverage. So I drank coffee that morning because I was actually quite tired. I've been traveling a lot. It was during the times of COVID, right? This is 2021. It was the middle of December, so it was freezing outside. I didn't want to leave the comfort of my home, but I had to go do my visit. I gotta go number 2. I'm comfortable going number 2 at this particular part of Baltimore in the Johns Hopkins University because the bathrooms are locked. You have to have a code to get into the bathroom. So I have the code because I'm a regular. I go, put the code in, I go to the bathroom. While I'm using the bathroom, I do feel a sensation. And it's very important. Like, I have to explain I went number 2 for this reason, right? Because I wouldn't be talking about having to have a bowel movement unless it was important to the story, okay? I felt a sensation. Something popped. I don't know what popped, but something popped. So I go back to work. As the time is passing, I progressively start to bloat. And I mean like the pain and sensation, and I feel like cramping. And I'm like, what in the world is this? It was to the point that I ended up asking my research coordinator who I was working with if I could have some acetaminophen. I was like, I need something to help with this pain. The pain was progressively getting worse, and I was like, it feels like cramps, so I'm not quite sure what this is. So I asked her, I was like, can you please give me some pain reliever? And she's like, yeah, I think I have some. She's also a nurse. It's very important to note that this coordinator was a nurse. She sees that I'm starting to look clammy, I'm starting to sweat. At one point she had passed me and my head was down. So her nurse instincts kicked in that something wasn't right. So she came into the office and she's like, oh, I found you some acetaminophen, but I have to ask you if you're okay. You know, you don't look so good. And I was like, I just don't know what's happening. I went to the bathroom. I don't know if it was the food I ate, but I'm bloating. It feels like cramps. And I was just like, you know, and I was transparent. I said, it feels very endo-ish. Like, it feels like I'm having a type of a sensation from my endometriosis. She's a nurse, right? I need help right now. I'm like, please, somebody tell me what's happening. And I have a nurse in front of me, so maybe she could tell me. So she asked me, have you ever had a cyst rupture? And I said, well, not to my knowledge. And she's like, I have endometriosis too, right? So look at God. Someone else who has endometriosis is talking to me. So she's like, I have endo too. It sounds like you had a cyst rupture. The way you're bloating, the pain you're in, the pain is progressing. It sounds like you had a cyst rupture. She's like, my endo pain and I have cysts that have ruptured. It gets to the point that every month during my menstrual time, I go and I get morphine. Like, she's like, her pain level, her threshold is like morphine. Remember I told you ibuprofen is what they prescribe you? She's on morphine every month, right? So perspective about pain. So I'm over here like, well, let me take these, you know, I took enough to be equivalent to an ibuprofen 800 because I know my life, right? 800s or more. We're not doing the, oh, let me take one. Let me take 2. No. Ibuprofen 800 or more, the big old tablet, that's what we're taking. So I took it and I said I should be fine. 3 o'clock swings around, I'm like, I gotta go. I gotta go. Like, I can't stay here. This is not my testimony. I gotta go. This hurts. I'm just gonna have to explain to my job that I couldn't finish the visit because of my health. She's like, do you need to go to the emergency room? Because I could walk you to the emergency room. And I tell her, no, I'm fine. I'm just gonna go to my hotel room. I'm gonna lay down. I fly out tomorrow. So I'll just, you know, if I don't feel good, I'm gonna go to the emergency room at home. The pain had gotten so bad that I had to walk 2 blocks to get to my car. And these are not New York City blocks. I'm not talking Manhattan 2-mile blocks. That's not the blocks I'm talking about. I'm talking 2 regular blocks. 10 steps maybe in between each block, right? Regular blocks. I'm walking like this. I'm in so much pain. I'm on my tippy toes. And I'm just like shuffling along. And I'm like, I'm making noise every single step because every time I lift my legs, it's pulling up against my abdomen. And I'm just I'm really making, because I was in a lot of pain. And it was the point that somebody who sells drugs is trying to sell me drugs because they think I'm high. That is how I'm shuffling along, and that's how I look. They were like, sis, mama, you need something? And I'm like, no, I'm good. Are you sure? I can make you feel good. And I'm like, no, I'm sure, I'm certain. I'm good. I don't need nothing else. I don't need nothing from you. I'm good. So I keep shuffling along and they're watching me because I'm like, I look like I was high. I'm not gonna lie. I actually laugh about it now because I'm like, it's kind of funny, you know? You were walking kind of crazy to the point that someone thought you were high. But at that point, I'm like, you really can't do anything if somebody tries to approach you or somebody tries to attack you, or, you know, so now my fight or flight is aware now, and I'm like, oh, people can see me and people could see that I'm in pain. I gotta get to my car. So I start shuffling faster. I'm shuffling along and I'm like, you know, trying to get to my car. When I get to my car, I had an SUV because if it snows, then I don't want to have to deal with snow. So I had an SUV, worst car in this case. I had to pull myself up by the little hanger, right? I'm pulling myself in. And then I had to lift, physically take my hands and lift each leg into the car because I literally at this point could not lift my legs. So I get in the car. Close the door. I have a 12-minute drive from the Johns Hopkins University to Baltimore Harbor. That's where I'm staying. I'm staying on the harbor right there. So I get to the hotel, I get to my room, and I go and I lay on the floor of the shower. And I just lay on the floor of the shower and I turn the water on hot and I just let the hot water hit my abdomen, and I'm just feeling such relief because, again, heating pad. I made a heating pad out of my shower and I'm just laying there and I'm just like, Lord, I'm praying at this point. I'm like, Lord, I need your help. I need your help. I'm in so much pain at this point that I'm like, I don't know what's going on with my body. I'm scared. The pain is kind of localized to the right side. So I'm like, did my appendix rupture or was this a cyst? So now I'm like, holy, you might have had your appendix rupture. And you might need to go to the hospital. You really might have to go to the hospital. I'm thinking like, well, you can't just lay here like on the shower floor. What if you really are becoming septic, right? Because if your appendix ruptures or if a cyst ruptures, something is coming out of it and it's going into your abdomen and your abdominal cavity. And especially if it's your appendix, you really could get sick and you could get infections. And you potentially could die as well. I'm panicking. Now at this point, I'm like, what am I gonna do? One thing, the first thing I said, what am I gonna do? How the hell am I getting off the shower floor? I didn't think this through. I'm like, I can't even lift my legs up. How am I getting up off the shower floor? I end up reaching up and there's like the sliding part of the door. I hold on to that and I support myself and I pull myself up. I finally am able to stand up. I'm like, just go lay in the bed. Just get to the bed, right? Just get into your bed. Go lay down, see what happens. If after 5-10 minutes, then you already know what time it is, you're going to the hospital. I go, I lay down. Now remember, we're in Baltimore. Going to the hospital in Baltimore. This is how much pain I'm in. Keep this in, and it's the middle of COVID and the middle of the winter, okay? So I go and I lay in the bed, and probably 5 minutes, the sensation gets even worse. So yes, the heat helped, but then now the sensation came immediately back, and now my entire abdomen is burning. It is a crazy sensation of pain, and I would have to say my pain on a level of 1 to 10, at this point, it was a 10. It was an absolute 10. I was like, you gotta go to the hospital, Chris. Chris, it's time to get up. You gotta go to the hospital. So I go on my phone, I go to my insurance website, and I look up hospitals in my network, because I'm like, well, if you're gonna go to the hospital, let's make sure we're not gonna charge $1 million to our account. I know my life matters, but I also care about my money too. So I look up the hospital that pops up. I can't remember the name. And it's important that I don't remember the name because I'm not trying to bring a hospital down, but I'm sure if you're from Baltimore, you're gonna know exactly what hospital I'm talking about. And it's gonna be relevant later in the story. I call a Lyft because I'm like, you can't drive to the hospital. At this point, I couldn't drive. I was like getting delirious. I'm sweating, I'm clammy. And so I was like, the hospital is 10 minutes away. Just get in the Lyft, go to the hospital. I didn't want to have to worry about parking, all that stuff too. Like I'm being smart. You got to get the closest fastest way to get emergency care. I have to make it down the elevator. I get into the lift. I believe this Lyft driver was God sent, and you'll hear why. So I get in the lift, struggling again to get in. I pull on the handle that's there to help you to get into the car. I'm holding on to that. I get into the lift. I'm making all this noise. Now I've been a Lyft driver. If someone is getting in my lift, in my car, making a bunch of noise, and they look kind of sketch, you're already on high alert. You're like, you know, like, let me go ahead and mind my business. I don't know if this person's okay, but what they about to do to my car? Are they sick? Are they about to throw up? So I already know what's going through the Lyft driver's head. He asked me, you know, so where are you heading, right? Because he's picking me up from a hotel, and it's a hotel in Baltimore Harbor. So he's like, okay, so where is she going? He looks at the app and he's like, okay, you're on your way to the hospital. He could see I'm on my way to the hospital. He knows Baltimore. He's lived here, he told me, for 40 years. It's an older gentleman. I was like, well, I'm on my way. The address is in the app, right? That's where I'm heading. And he could tell by my response, I'm not trying to tell you where I'm going. And also, because I travel alone, I know, you know, just be on high alert in any area you are by yourself and there's somebody else, right? So I'm not trying to give him too much information. I'm not trying to bring too much attention to myself, because right now I can't fight nobody, right? So always thinking about my safety first. He could tell that I am on high alert. He could tell that I'm uncomfortable. He could tell that I'm in pain. So he tells me I have a daughter. He said, I could see that you're in pain, see that you're on your way to the hospital. I just want to make sure that you're okay. So I still am quiet, and I said, I'm fine. You know, I'm not trying to bring no attention to myself. I'm not trying to have no conversation with somebody who I don't know. And I'm trying to just get to the hospital. So we're driving and we're driving. He's like, you know, he's like, I lived in Baltimore for 40 years. And I'm trying to understand, why did you choose this hospital? Right? Like, out of nowhere. Like, why did you choose this hospital? You know, we passed in the University of Maryland. We're passing the Johns Hopkins University, and you're choosing to go to this hospital. And I said, well, that's the one that popped up at the top, you know, when I Googled. You know, I didn't want to tell him that, you know, I looked at my insurance card, all this stuff. I just said, well, that's the one that popped up. He said, well, I'm gonna be honest with you. Listen, I don't know you. I want you to be safe. I can see that you're alone. I see you're going to the hospital. I see you're in pain. I would not recommend you go to this hospital. This is the hospital you go to if it's your last resort and you just really don't care about your care. He's like, this is the hospital that people go in and they don't come out, if you understand what I'm saying. This is the hospital that I wouldn't even send my worst enemy to. This is the hospital my cousin works at, and she said, don't ever come to this hospital. And this is my Lyft driver. That's why I said he was God sent. I have an emergency situation, and I'm going to a hospital that I now know that I should not have been going to receive care. So he definitely was God sent. So we actually had pulled up to that emergency room, and I said, okay. I'm going to reroute you. Don't leave. Let me just reroute you. Don't drop me off in the app. I'm going to reroute you to the closest hospital, which happened to be the University of Maryland. He said, absolutely. I will take you to the University of Maryland because you will receive way better care there. So I reroute in the app, and he drives me 7 minutes away to the University of Maryland emergency room. He drops me off and he says, please be safe and I hope you feel better. So I walk in the hospital, and immediately it's the COVID protocol. Do you have any symptoms? Are you here because you think you have COVID? Or all the stuff. I'm like, no, and no. I said, I'm here for something else. So they give me the band that I don't have COVID, because at this time, the emergency room was split into two sections. You got the COVID positive on one side, and you got the COVID negative on the other side. If you haven't been to an emergency room during COVID times, they had two sides. Yeah, they were COVID positive and COVID negative, and they just kind of separated you by like some film. So pretty much everybody was catching COVID. I don't see how that was so protective. I'm COVID negative. I get my colored band that notes I'm COVID negative. Now, when you go to the emergency room and you're checking in, there are certain things that if you say, they should put you at the top of the list, right? So I tell them, I said, I think my appendix may have ruptured. That should put me at the top of the list. If you note that you have any head injury, neck injury, anything that's to do with your spinal cord, that should put you at the top of the list. If you tell them your pain level is a 10, that should also put you up at the top of the list. So when you come into the emergency room, they triage you based on what your issue is. So if you just come in and say, I got pain, they're gonna be like, okay, go sit down. And it's probably gonna be a while before they see you. So I'm giving them hints, like I think my appendix ruptured, which I did. I have a pain level of 10. I'm clammy, I have a fever. At this point, I could tell all these things were happening because I was hot, but it's freezing outside in Baltimore. She asked me for my insurance card, all this stuff, and I have a seat. Now, I look around the emergency room and I realize why I had to wait an hour. We have someone who's throwing up into a bucket here. We got someone who it looked like he got stabbed or something, and there's just blood, and he's got a bloody towel around his hand. You got somebody else who, I don't know if they got shot or stabbed, holding their abdomen. It was a show in that emergency room. So keep in mind, again, my pain level. I'm gonna sit through this because that's how much pain I was in. I'm gonna sit in an emergency room that I was utterly uncomfortable because there's a whole lot of stuff going on. I'm by myself. I just was like, you know what? You need to get care. That's all that matters. You need to get care because right now you don't know what's going on in your body, and the pain level now was like a 12. It's progressively getting worse. So I'm sitting there, there's people coughing, I'm just trying to sit in the furthest seat away from everyone. In the back corner is where I'm sitting. All I had was my charger and my wallet. I was like, I'm not bringing a purse, I'm not bringing anything big, just stuff that I could just stuff in my pants. I'm sitting there for about an hour. And then finally the triage nurse calls me. By this time, I literally was taking baby steps. I could not lift my legs. I was taking the smallest baby steps to get to her. She's already annoyed because she's dealing with patients in Baltimore emergency room. So she's looking at me like, really? Really? You're gonna walk? Hurry up. That's like how she was looking at me. I'm like, great. So she clearly thinks I'm doing this on purpose. I'm walking super slow. Like I could barely lift my legs. I'm shuffling. I'm not even picking my feet up. I'm dragging them because I could not pick my feet up. I was in that much pain and my abdomen just would not allow me to. So I finally get into the triage space. She asked me, what brings you in? And I tell her, I'm in a lot of pain right now. And I just started crying. I couldn't hold it back anymore. The pain was so bad that I start crying. And I tell her, I said, I would never come to the emergency room if I did not feel it was necessary, unless I didn't feel it was an emergency. I know how important it is. The emergency people are available for emergencies. I said, I'm here for work. I used the bathroom earlier today. Something ruptured. I don't know if it was my appendix and I don't know if it's tied to my endometriosis. I'm stage 4. And I started giving her my history. So she knows that, okay, must seriously be an emergency because this woman knows what she's talking about. I told her, I was like, I work in research and I know the body. There's something definitely wrong. So I didn't have to go back. They immediately took me back. They immediately got me hooked up on an IV. They immediately called a CT scan. They immediately did all of these things, got my blood work. Everything was done stat. And while they were asking me like my medical history, they called a GI surgeon and they called a OBGYN surgeon as well. They both came in and they both were asking me questions. I'm answering questions about medical history. They get me a morphine drip because they're like, your pain level, what would you say it is? I'm like, at this point, I would say it's like a 15 out of 10. I was literally bawling, crying. I have never been in so much pain in my entire life. And I'm just sitting there like, oh God, I just don't know. I'm scared. At that point, I had called my mom, told her I was in the emergency room. I have to give gratitude to my family because I have an amazing family. My mother called New York. I can't remember. My mother called New York if I had called my cousin or my aunt in New York because that's the closest family to me. They're 3 hours away. My aunt was going to drive down from New York. My cousin was like, I'm gonna get on a bus. Listen, if you need me, I'm getting on a bus now, tonight. I'm coming to Baltimore, okay? I could catch a bus. I will see you soon. That's the type of family support that I had, because I'm by myself. I'm scared because I'm by myself. If something really is really wrong, I really don't have anybody here. I'm super scared. I don't know what's going on. And then my labs come back. And you know what I do for a living? I read labs for a living. So I go into the portal and I read the labs. My white blood cells are, everything that has to do with my lymphocytes, my white blood cells, everything is high. My red blood cells are high. Everything is like alert, 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 alert. So I tried not to panic. Because it's like your blood is saying, there is something absolutely wrong. They're on high alert as well, because they're like, could it have been her appendix or did something else rupture? The CT scan comes back. I have free floating fluid in my abdomen. So now they know for sure something ruptured. So I'm laying there. Person next to me, he was homeless. And if you don't know, homeless people do come to the emergency room. If it's really, really cold outside, they come to the emergency room so that they could get a warm bed. This was a repeated offender. They knew him by name. He was pretending like he was sleeping and couldn't wake up. And they're like, you gotta go. Like, we need the bed. Like, we let you sleep. You gotta go. And he's pretending like he doesn't want to wake up and he can't hear them. So they have to leave him alone. Then on the other side, I have somebody who OD'd and they're throwing up and throwing up and throwing up. And they're being really nasty to the nurses. So the nurses are like, well, there's nothing we could do for you, throw up. So I'm sitting here in between a homeless person and somebody who's OD'd and throwing up. And I am sitting here in the middle and I'm like, I just want to go home, but I don't know what's wrong with me. So I end up FaceTiming my friend and I'm talking with them, and they talked to me the entire time that I was there, which brought me such peace. So I mean, like, that support had me laughing. I have such gratitude to this person for that. They just helped me get through such a difficult time because I was by myself. And it was just like, it was insane. The pain level was insane. I remember getting up to go to the bathroom. Even with the morphine, I was still in pain. The pain level was still there. I was still in pain. I still couldn't lift my legs. I still couldn't move. I just was like, I gotta go to the bathroom though. I have to use the bathroom and I have to walk down just like a little corridor just to get to the bathroom. And then I had to squat. Hold myself up and squat. Because I definitely was not putting these cheeks on that toilet. These cheeks were not touching that toilet. So I'm like, more pain. So I had to hold myself up to use the bathroom. I use the bathroom, I get back to my bed. I just remember trying to, I stayed awake because I wasn't going to sleep. There was no way I was going to sleep in that area, in that hospital. I don't trust nobody. I don't care if you're a nurse, doctor, whatever. I had my wallet behind my back. They're doing all these different things. They're coming to get x-rays. They're coming to get different scans. They put me on an antibiotic drip as well. So my IV had antibiotics in it. And I am just laying there in pain. My mom's calling because she's super worried, of course. She's now, I don't know how she got the phone number for the nursing station, but she got the nursing station's phone number and she's like, y'all need to call me every hour. I need to know what's happening with my daughter. The pain just stayed and stayed. I think I was in pain until maybe 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. I was there overnight. After maybe like 1, they put me into an emergency room suite. I was then isolated by myself. There was a door, and I finally was able to fall asleep. But every hour or 2 hours, they were coming in and getting blood work because my levels still said she has infection. She has an infection still. Do we need to do surgery? It wasn't until 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock in the morning when, now the staff is switching over that I hear them talking outside in the hallway. And I could hear the charge nurse, or whether it was a doctor, was telling the team, like, we have a 35-year-old Black female She came in with abdominal pain. She has free-floating fluid in her abdomen. We're checking her vitals to make sure that, that she's in a safe place, or if we're gonna have to do surgery. We have OBGYN on call. We have GI on call. Potentially, she may need to have emergency surgery. Not sure for what ruptured, but something ruptured in her abdomen. So what they determined happened was I had an endometrioma rupture. Of course, because I had my appendix taken out in July. So my appendix was still there. My appendix hadn't ruptured. I was released. I was feeling better when I left, of course, after having antibiotics for almost a day, right? Like 12 to 15 hours of antibiotics and hydration. I did leave. I was able to catch my flight and I was able to go home. And I remember when I got home, I just thank God, because it was a scary experience. One, it's always scary going into a hospital, but having to go to a hospital in another city was insane. Having to go to another hospital in Baltimore was even worse. So when women are saying they're in pain, definitely believe them. The pain is real. Symptoms associated with endometriosis is real. When I tell you you do not want an endometrioma to rupture, you do not want an endometrioma to rupture. I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy. Like someone I absolutely abhor and despise. I don't think I got people like that in my life. But if that person existed, I don't even think that I would wish that type of pain on that person. That pain, when I tell you it was a 15, it was a 15. I'm so grateful for that Lyft driver, because that Lyft driver, I don't even know what would have happened if I went into that other hospital. Would I have come out? I'm thankful for that triage nurse who took me directly back. I mean, everything that happened after I was triaged to release, I thank the University of Maryland. I absolutely do. The care was amazing. And I also think it was amazing because I was very kind. No matter how much pain I was in, I was kind to the nurses. When you go to the emergency room, I know how you want to be so selfish. You're there because you're in pain and you need care. But you need to be kind. The stuff that I heard from some of these people and the way they treated these nurses, and these nurses were beat down because it was COVID times. And then they're dealing with other stuff as well. And these people were so mean to them. It costs absolutely nothing to be kind. And that's what I told one of the nurses. Because she was like, you're being so kind even though you're in so much pain. And I told her, it cost me absolutely nothing to be kind. And when you're mean, it gives you wrinkles. So we had a nice little laugh. So that's it. Be mindful of those who have endo. They are in pain. The pain is real. I hope you do try the FibroFizz because it absolutely is delicious. I'm not trying to drink and talk at the same time. Next week, we'll be talking about fibroids. I hope you have a wonderful week. I hope that you start something. Make today your last day one. If you haven't, if you have something you want to start it. Set small goals and complete them one after the next, and you'll be surprised how far you get. Make today your last day one. As I said at the beginning of the show, make sure you get those thumbs up going. Click on that like button, please, and thank you. Please subscribe to my channel and also share the content. If you feel somebody could utilize this content, definitely share it. It's one click and they give you the whole little link there and send it on to somebody else. Have a beautiful week. Make today your last day one, and I will see you next time. Bye.